It's me again, and yes, I'm still sick. And now I've gone and run out of things to do. I read all the books twice, I overplayed the DOS games, and the 2DS ran out of battery. Oh, of course, the blue rat!
Sonic the Hedgehog, if you haven't heard of him. Where have you been for the last 3 decades? He started out as the reason for Sega to stay in the console business, fueling the Genesis with massive hit after massive hit, and giving the Dreamcast a reason to exist. Sure, he slipped past a generation of consoles, whoops, but that was just because Sonic Extreme entered development hell and never came back out. The Sega Saturn nearly killed the company, and the Dreamcast didn't do well enough to warrant another console, so Sega's brilliant plan to save the company from disaster was to give up. They moved on and landed deals to put Sonic games on non-Sega consoles. Suddenly, you saw that smug cyan rodent everywhere. The GameCube, Game Boy Advance, Xbox, and even the PlayStation 2.
And it just so happens that I have every mainline Sonic game on this console. I drank a 2-liter of Big Red, and when I came to, I had all of these.
Sonic may not be very used to competitor consoles, but he came swinging for the fences on his first outing. He promptly hit multiple foul balls. Sonic Heroes was released in early 2004, and the PlayStation 2 version was the worst out of all 4 according to Metacritic by a margin of 9. But I'd argue the gap is much more than that. 11. You just get way worse models and performance in general on the PlayStation 2. They clearly had no clue how to make proper use of PlayStation 2's resources, and it shows. They learned after a couple years, but Sonic Heroes made it look like the PlayStation 2 was a potato incapable of decent 3D graphics.
I told it to render a sphere and it's done nothing but sit there for 3 hours.
The game itself is fine. It has a cool character swapping mechanic and 4 storylines that are all pretty good except the chaotics. I'm just mad at my younger self for not being good enough to beat the game even on the easiest story. Honestly, there should be a course on playing platformers in elementary school. It would have helped 9-year-old me a lot. Sonic Gems Collection, the only main game I don't have.
Yeah, this one eluded every effort I made to find it as a kid. I desperately wanted to play all the cool games that bundled together, but I was broke, and asking our parents to go to the local mom-and-pop retro game store was like saying,
"So, Dad, the carpet caught fire."
Most of the games in this collection could be played elsewhere, but Sonic R and Sonic the Fighters are just nowhere. It feels like Sega forgot these two exist, and honestly can't blame them. They are ultimately not the best titles, and their additions to the series are referenced on occasion. Sonic Mega Collection Plus, exclusive to the PlayStation 2 and Xbox, came with far more essential Sonic titles that haven't been forgotten, like the original quadrilogy of games, Sonic Spinball, Sonic 3D Blast, and of course, Sonic Labyrinth, all equally important.
What gave this game the Plus moniker was all the extra Game Gear games it came packaged with. But there were also a whole bunch of extra Genesis games that came with it as well, which you could unlock just by, playing the games, or, for one of them, you had to launch Sonic 3 over and over and over and over again to get Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Thanks, Sega!
Knuckles in Sonic 2, Flicky, Restar, the Ooze, and Comic Zone were all great distractions from the sea-colored mammal. Was it worth the bargain bin price I got it for?
Of course it was worth it. Nobody should be able to play this many games for a nickel.
Shadow the Hedgehog. This game feels like a joke, but not a funny joke. A cruel joke that no one understands and gets you labeled a moron. Shadow wields a gun and can make choices on whether he wants to be good or evil. It seems like maybe an interesting concept that could have been pretty interesting, but the way you're made to make these choices is often just painful. Want to be evil? Hunt the extremely dark level for all the soldiers in dark clothing and kill them. Want to be good? Hunt the dark level for all the aliens that are dark colored and kill them. Want to be neutral? Leave the level without doing the other things. That's it. These choices present you with different levels and endings based on your choices, which would be a cool idea, but the controls for the gun are cumbersome and the movement is slippery, and I was banned from playing this as a kid because Shadow swears if he dies in a hole. Great! On top of all of this, the real ending to the game is locked behind every other ending. That's right, you have to play through this stupid game that takes too long as is, multiple times to get the real ending. No!
Sonic Riders is the next one up. The one where Sonic uses a skateboard in a speed-based competition. He what?
Yeah, this feels like a weird entry. Definitely a spin-off series, and pretty fun at that, but it's definitely not something I would want to fully complete, even if the story is good. Personally, racing games aren't a big sell for me, only a few have broken the barrier between boring turn simulation game and crazy non-stop action. Please don't insult me if I didn't like your favorite game, it's not very polite.
Well, enough people must have liked it because it got a sequel a couple years later, Sonic Riders Zero Gravity. Somehow also on the PlayStation 2.
This entry added a fun mechanic revolving around gravity manipulation that is honestly pretty cool. Collecting enough GP, gravity points, allows you to either gain a burst of speed or access shortcuts that are otherwise inaccessible. It also adds a sort of battle mode named Survival Mode where you can try to kill each other on a racetrack. Nice. It's an alright romp, definitely more interesting than the first, and well worth going back to.
Now, I'm not covering Sega Superstars Tennis, or Sega Genesis Collection because they aren't strictly Sonic games. I mean, sure, they have Sonic in them, but they don't have Sonic in the title, so no, they do not count. We are not covering them. Do not ask me to.
Which leaves just one game left on the console, a backport of Sonic Unleashed. Now, this backport is very different from the main game that was on PlayStation 3. It removes a few levels, doesn't include the hub worlds, the leveling system is completely different, the Sun and Moon medals are strictly optional for most of the game and are awarded for simply playing the game well, and there are far fewer enemies in the Hedgehog sections. Yeah, it's worse in almost every way, don't worry about it. This was one of the first few Sonic games I ever played and thus has some level of nostalgia for me, although not enough to forgive its shortcomings. The battle theme lives rent-free in my head and refuses to ever go away. No, please. No, make it stop. Ah! Difficulty spikes hide in the last 3 areas. The Hedgehog sections can drag on sometimes. The Eggman Land missions are completely absurd. And we don't have the QuickTime Tornado levels. Hey wait, that's a positive. Imagine my surprise when I started using the internet and found out the game I loved and played way too much is labeled as a bad game.
Well, I guess I'm gonna have to live with the fact that one of my favorite games actually sucks. Could be worse. I could have grown up with the Rugrats. Well, I guess I'm gonna have to deal with the fact that one of my favorite games of all time actually sucks. I hit the tripod with the case.